Welcome back. The Worldwide Fund for Nature, the WWF, has urged African ministers to push for the phase-out of its current energy reliance on fossil fuels to a sustainable future centred around renewable sources. It says the outcomes of the 19th Amcen meeting will play a crucial role in shaping Africa's environmental policies. For more on this, we're joined by the WWF's Africa Regional Plastics Policy Coordinator, that's Zaynab Sadan. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Sadan. Let's talk about this meeting. How crucial is it? How does it bring people together in an attempt to change policies?
Thank you for that question. So this meeting, which is held in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, brings together ministers that are in charge of the environment. Now, this, in the case of South Africa, that means the Ministry of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment. But in the case of Ethiopia, it's the Department of Planning and Development. So all the ministries that are in charge of the environment come together to decide on various decisions on topics such as climate change, biodiversity loss, and of course, plastic pollution, to have a joint vision for Africa. Now, that means 54 African environment ministers are agreeing on positions on these various topics, which is quite crucial as they enter negotiations, as they enter other conferences related to this. And so they're all talking with one voice on climate change, on biodiversity loss, and of course, plastic pollution.
And how easy is it to get consensus? I mean, in South Africa, before we talk about plastic specifically, we've seen how difficult it is to even talk about a transition away from coal power stations that are polluting because of our energy crisis, and we have so many other issues. And that's why there is this call for the just transition, people in the supply chain affected as well.
Exactly. And one of the main issues is that many African countries come from various different contexts. And so a small island developing state compared to a least developed country, compared to an economy like South Africa or Nigeria, this adds to the issues in terms of coming to consensus. However, African environment ministers have agreed that when it comes to the transition to renewable energy systems, it needs to be just and inclusive. And of course, when it comes to the operationalization of the loss and damage fund, which was agreed upon in the COP27 last year, they agree that more climate finance need to flow into African countries and specifically focus on adaptation measures.
Around plastics policy specifically, how much consensus is there?
So actually, this is one of the positive decisions. We're seeing African countries call for common harmonized global rules in the new treaty or in the future treaty that is currently being negotiated. They're calling to prioritize the elimination of the most problematic and the most high-risk plastic categories. Now, when we're talking about high risk, we're talking about pollution risk, so the potential for it to land up in nature, but also the risk of the harm it causes on human health and the environment. Now, this includes the harmful chemical additives that's added to some plastic materials, and of course, the harmful products that we see in nature. And finally, they're also calling for a just transition for the workers in the plastics value chain. And of course, the most vulnerable, which includes the waste pickers who we see collecting recyclable material off the streets or off landfills and making sure it gets into the recycling system. Making sure that these waste pickers are actually compensated for and included in the negotiation process, but also ensuring the necessary conditions for small to medium enterprises when it comes to transitioning to what we're calling a circular economy through reuse systems, so reusable water bottles, plastic bags, etc., and also more circular product design requirements. So how our small businesses can also participate in this new and in this transition.
And where it's been done well, it just seems like there's only upside and benefit for everybody when there are plastic tokens, for example. So the the waste pickers, the people picking up the plastic, get great economic benefit, and then nature and society benefits as well.
Exactly. And we have to look at both the environmental impacts and benefits, but also the socioeconomic aspects to this. So the livelihoods dependent on ecotourism around marine areas, for example, are being affected by plastic pollution. And so if plastic pollution is reduced and eventually eliminated, this will, of course, add to the economic systems around those areas. And of course, if waste pickers are included and are also recognized for the value and the service that they provide, this also adds benefits for that particular employment sector. And this is not only in South Africa, but many developing countries in Africa and beyond.
All right, we appreciate your time, and let's see how that develops. WWF Africa Regional Plastics Policy Coordinator Zaynab Sadan.